Ukrainian drones struck Russia's Bolkhov semiconductor plant in Oryol Oblast, which is producing parts for Sukhoi warplanes and Iskander and Kinzhal missiles, the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said. The statement comes after Russia claimed to have downed over 150 Ukrainian drones overnight in multiple regions, including 53 in Oryol Oblast. The region's governor, Andrey Klychkov, initially reported no damage or casualties, but later said that the semiconductor plant and several residential buildings were damaged. The plant has been sanctioned by the U.S. since last year over its role in the Russian military-industrial complex. The Bolkhov plant is one of Russia's leading producers of semiconductor devices and components, focusing on diodes, microcircuits, optoelectronic switches, and more, the General Staff said. The factory supplies at least 19 Russian plants involved in the production of Sukhoi planes or Iskander and Kinzhal ballistic missiles. Despite the sanctions, it produces almost 3 million devices per year, according to the Ukrainian military. The Oryol region is located northeast of Ukraine, approximately 170 kilometers from the nearest Ukrainian border. The Bolkhov semiconductor device plant, located in the town of Bolkhov about 55 kilometers from Oryol, is a key facility in Russia's military-industrial complex. It develops and manufactures electronic components for radioelectronic equipment, including microchips, semiconductors, indicators, microassemblies, and so-called eternal batteries, used in military systems. The plant's products are used in communication, control, electronic warfare, and simulators for tanks and missile systems. Andrey Klychkov, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, said that the plant specializes in producing microchips, semiconductors, and control components used in T-72B3 and T-90M tanks, self-propelled howitzers, Iskander and Kh-101 missiles, electronic warfare systems such as Kursk and Zelenski, as well as tactical communication systems for army-level operations. Despite international sanctions, Kovalenko said, the Bolkhov plant continued to import Western technologies through third countries and parallel import schemes, sourcing components from Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, and even the United States.
Капец, как горит.
Смотрите, а вон листы, вон, глянь, все падает. Вон, да, иди. Да пусть падает. Это все. Ветер поднимется, и здесь на домах унесет.
The Russian military has intercepted and launched a missile strike on a training ground of the 1st Special Forces Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces near the settlement of Shostka in Sumy region. The Russian Defense Ministry has released relevant information and footage. The training ground, discovered by a drone, was struck by an Iskander operational tactical missile system. As a result of the strike, at least 70 Ukrainian servicemen, including 20 instructors, were killed, and an ammunition depot and 10 combat vehicles were destroyed. The training ground is said to be located 50 kilometers from the Ukrainian-Russian border. The Ukrainian side has not commented on the incident. Ukrainian defense forces have recently advanced in the Kursk region and near Borovaya and Toretsk. Meanwhile, Russian invaders are pressing near Chasov Yar, Toretsk and Novopavlivka, as well as in the Kursk region. This is reported by Institute for the Study of War. Recently, the Ukrainian defense forces have advanced in the Kursk region. Geolocation footage published on May 19 shows the Ukrainian defense forces advancing on the southern outskirts of Tyatkino, southwest of Glushkov. Meanwhile, Russian troops are also advancing in this direction. As geolocation footage from May 19 shows, the Russian army has advanced to the international checkpoint southeast of Tyatkino. Russian military intelligence claimed that the armed forces of Ukraine were allegedly unsuccessfully attacking Tyatkino and Novyi Put, southwest of Glushkov and east of Tyatkino. Ukrainian military observer Konstantin Mashevet stated that North Korean troops are no longer conducting assaults on the Kursk direction, and Russian troops are only episode ally deploying a North Korean contingent on Russian territory. Neither Ukrainian nor Russian ISW sources reported ground activity in the northwestern Belgorod region on May 19. On May 19, the Russian occupiers continued offensive operations in the north of Sumy region, but did not advance. Vadim Mysnyk, spokesman for the Seversky Group of Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, reported that the Russian Federation is accumulating forces in the Kursk region and continues to advance with small groups of infantry along the international border between the Sumy and Kursk regions. Russian invaders continued limited ground attacks in northern Kharkiv Oblast on May 19, but were unsuccessful. On May 18 and 19, Russian troops stormed the area of Vovchansk and Vovchansky Kuturi. On May 18, a Russian blogger stated that the Ukrainian armed forces counterattacked near Lyptsy. On May 19, the Russian occupiers continued to advance in the Kupiansk direction, but did not advance. Russian troops attacked along the international border in the Stroivka area and in the Kharkivka area. A spokesman for the Ukrainian brigade operating in the Kupiansk direction reported that the Russians had reduced the size of their infantry assault groups from 5 to 6 to 2 to 3 people, and that the enemy continues to prefer the use of buggies, motorcycles, and all-terrain vehicles over armored vehicles during the assault. The head of the Kupiansk District Military Administration, Andrey Klychkov, stated that the Russian occupiers have increased the number and scope of air and artillery strikes on the Kupiansk district. The Russian military expert claimed that Putin's troops used Shahid drones, which are usually used to launch long-range strikes on the rear areas of Ukraine, to strike at Ukrainian armed forces targets in the Kupiansk direction. Recently, Ukrainian defenders advanced in the direction of Borovaya. The commander of the Ukrainian brigade reported that the Russians are trying to enter Torsky in strike groups of 2 or 3 soldiers, and that the armed forces of Ukraine are killing or wounding 80 to 90% of these groups.